The Discovery, deep in the silent corner of the galaxy, far from trade routes and shining stars, a group of human explorers drifted slowly in their worn ship. Their mission was simple: search for old wrecks and gather what little could be sold back on Earth. But this time, what they found was not simple scrap. It was something much greater, something that would change history. As their scanners swept the dark void, a massive object appeared on the edge of their screens. At first, the crew thought it was just another broken freighter, maybe left behind after a forgotten war. But the size was too large, the structure too unusual, and the readings too strange. Metal plates stretched like the ribs of a giant beast, its surface burned and scarred by battles long ago. The ship looked dead, abandoned, lost to time. But there was a strange energy deep inside, faint but steady. Captain Alara, the leader of the small crew, stared at the monitor. Her eyes wide with both fear and excitement, she whispered to herself, "This is no ordinary wreck. This is something older, something waiting." Her words sent a chill through the room. The crew exchanged nervous glances, but curiosity was stronger than fear. Humans had always been curious. It was in their blood, and so they decided to move closer. Their ship approached the silent giant, drifting in endless darkness. The closer they came, the more the crew could feel a presence, as if the derelict ship was watching them. Some of the younger crew members joked nervously, calling it a ghost ship, but no one truly laughed. Their hearts beat faster as the docking clamps connected, and the cold echo of metal against metal filled the air. When the airlock opened, silence greeted them. The corridors inside were huge, made for a race far taller and stronger than humans. Walls were covered with strange symbols, half-burned and unreadable. Dust floated like ghostly mist in the low gravity. Every step echoed, but deep within the silence they heard a low hum, almost like a heartbeat. Lieutenant Jonas touched the wall, and the crew jumped as faint lights flickered along the corridor. No one spoke for a moment. Fear pressed down on them, but then Alara said firmly, "Keep moving, we need to know what this place is." The crew followed, flashlights sweeping across the dark halls, revealing broken doors, shattered consoles, and old weapon racks. Whoever had built this ship was gone. But their presence remained heavy and powerful. At the core chamber, they found something incredible. A massive engine still glowing faintly after centuries of silence. The hum grew louder here, vibrating through their bones. Jonas whispered, "This ship should be dead, but it is still alive." The crew felt a mix of fear and wonder. Their hands shook as they recorded everything. To the galaxy, this ship was nothing but forgotten rust. But to humans, it was treasure. Back on their small vessel, reports were sent to Earth. Scientists demanded scans. Leaders demanded answers. But in secret, Alara decided something else. She ordered her crew to begin small repairs, connecting power from their own ship to the ancient beast. The galaxy laughed at humans often, calling them scavengers, calling them weak. But Alara believed this wreck was not just old metal. It was destiny. Days turned into weeks, and each time they powered another system, the ship seemed to respond. Lights glowed brighter, corridors breathed with faint warmth, and screens flickered with unreadable symbols. Strangest of all, the ship responded to humans alone, ignoring robotic tools, ignoring scanners. It was as if the warship had been waiting, sleeping for centuries, until human hands touched its heart. Rumors spread fast, whispers among traders and travelers. The humans had found something ancient, something dangerous. Alien councils mocked them, saying humans were wasting time on junk, but some whispered the truth, that this ship was from a forgotten empire, a predator race long erased from history, a ship that once brought entire systems to their knees. And now, it rested in human hands. In the silence of the deep, the ancient warship pulsed once more. Its heartbeat grew stronger, echoing in the halls. The crew stood in awe, feeling both terror and pride. Alara closed her eyes and whispered, "We did not find this ship. It found us." And with that, the discovery was complete. But the true awakening was only just beginning. The awakening, the days after discovery, were filled with tension and excitement. Humans had brought back many wrecks before, but never had they felt a ship breathe under their hands. This derelict was different. It was not dead, only sleeping, and each touch of human effort seemed to stir it awake. Captain Alara stood in the command chamber, surrounded by consoles half-burned and lifeless. She placed her hand on the cracked surface, and suddenly lines of glowing symbols appeared. Her crew gasped, stepping back in fear, but the lights did not fade. They pulsed softly, almost like they recognized her. Alara whispered, "It knows us," her voice both shaken and steady. Outside the ship, the galaxy watched and laughed. Alien councils sent reports across the stars, mocking humans again. They said humans were foolish scavengers, wasting time on a rusted hulk that would never fly. Messages filled the channels. "Leave the wreck. It belongs in a graveyard," they said. But humans ignored the insults. For inside the ancient ship, something impossible was happening. Engineers connected human power cells into the broken circuits. At first, nothing responded. But then, like a heartbeat skipping into rhythm, the ship answered. Lights along the walls flickered one by one. A low vibration rolled through the decks. The crew froze, fear gripping them. But then they smiled nervously because the warship was alive. Jonas, the lieutenant, laughed shakily. "We are not repairing it. It is repairing itself." Screens lit up, showing maps no one understood. Star charts with symbols of systems long gone. Weapons locked in their racks hummed faintly, as if eager to be released. The crew felt as if they had stepped inside the ribs of a sleeping giant. And now it was stretching after a long rest. Days passed, and the bond between humans and the warship grew. Only when they touched the controls did the systems respond. Robots could not trigger the lights, scanners could not read the symbols, but human hands, human voices, human hearts awakened something inside. Alara began to believe the ship had been waiting through centuries for their arrival. The crew faced nightmares in their sleep. Dreams of battles fought ages ago. They saw fire raining from the sky, fleets burning, and voices crying out in languages they did not know. Jonas confessed that when he touched the main console, he heard whispers, like the ship was speaking directly into his mind. Others admitted the same. Visions of war, screams of enemies, and shadows of a forgotten empire. Fear spread among them, but so did wonder, because the ship did not harm them. It was simply showing its past. On the outer rim, alien fleets gathered, curious and suspicious. They sent scouts to observe, sending back images of humans crawling like ants inside a rusted monster. Councils roared with laughter, calling it a circus show. "Humanity plays with bones of the dead," one leader declared. But deep in their hearts, a small fear grew, because they could not explain why the wreck glowed again. Inside, Alara stood firm. "We will not stop. If the galaxy laughs, let them laugh," she said. Her crew nodded, even through fear, because they too felt the ship's heartbeat growing stronger. Systems began to power one after another. Corridors warmed, gravity returned in sections, and then came the moment no one expected. It was the engine chamber. The humans had patched only a few circuits, never enough to start anything. But as Jonas placed his hand on the main panel, a sudden roar filled the ship. The deck shook, the walls trembled, and the great engines of the warship ignited. Blue fire burst out, shaking the void of space, echoing across the darkness. The galaxy froze. Every sensor from nearby fleets lit up at once. Reports screamed across channels. "The human wreck moves. It moves." Alien commanders stared in disbelief. The impossible had happened. A ship thought dead for centuries had awoken, its engines burning stronger than their newest designs. On board, the crew held on tightly, terror and joy mixing in their hearts. The ship was not only alive, it was eager. Like a beast chained too long, now stretching and roaring. Lights across the bridge glowed bright and symbols shifted rapidly as if the ship was trying to speak. Alara whispered, "It does not need us to fix it. It only needed us to wake it." Her crew looked at each other, pale faces filled with awe. Jonas trembled, but his eyes were wide with fire. "Captain, this is not just a warship. It is something more." Outside, fleets repositioned, preparing for war. Alien leaders ordered their ships to move closer, ready to crush humanity's foolish pride. But in the shadows of the void, the ancient ship pulsed with life. It was awake, and the galaxy would soon learn the cost of their laughter, and thus the awakening began. The deadliest warship in history had opened its eyes once more. The first test, the awakening of the engines, was only the beginning. For days, the ancient ship vibrated with power, its great frame humming like a living creature ready to move. The crew could hardly sleep. Every corridor glowed faintly. Every console whispered with strange symbols. They knew the next step was dangerous, but also unavoidable. They had to test the systems. Captain Alara gathered her crew on the bridge. The massive chamber was still half dark, with flickering lights and broken panels, yet the main console shined clearly, glowing with shifting lines that responded only to her touch. She looked at her people and said calmly, "Today, we test if this ship truly lives." The crew nodded nervously. Jonas sat at the weapons station, his hands shaking as he hovered above the alien controls. Engineers monitored the power levels, their screens filled with numbers they barely understood. The silence was heavy, only the hum of the ship's heart filled the air. "Activate the first system," Alara ordered. Jonas pressed his hand down, and the console lit up. Suddenly, the entire ship shook with a deep vibration. Metal groaned, lights blazed across the bridge, and a massive panel slid open on the outer hull. The crew gasped as they saw it through the viewports. A giant cannon, longer than their entire exploration vessel, unfolded from the ship's spine. Its surface shimmered with unknown energy. Symbols glowed across its length. Jonas whispered, "This is no weapon. This is a storm." Before they could react, the cannon charged itself. No commands were given, no orders spoken. A beam of light exploded from its mouth, cutting across the void of space. The blast struck a nearby asteroid, and in less than a second, the massive rock shattered into glowing dust. The crew stared in silence, their mouths open in shock. Nothing in the modern galaxy could do that. Not even the newest fleets of the great empires. This was power beyond imagination, power that belonged to a forgotten age. The ship had revealed its teeth, and they were sharper than anything alive today. Panic spread among the crew. Jonas pulled his hand away, shouting, "I didn't fire it, it fired itself," engineers confirmed, their voices trembling. The system had moved on its own. The ship had chosen the target, had chosen the action, as if testing its own strength. Alara forced her voice steady. "Record everything. Do not fear it. We must learn." But even she felt the chill in her bones. It was not just a warship. It was a predator, one that hunted even in its sleep, and now it was awake, outside, unseen to the humans. Alien scouts watched from a distance. Their ships recorded the blast. Their commanders gasped in horror. Messages flew through hyperspace, reaching every council and fleet. "The human wreck lives, and its weapons destroy mountains in seconds," they cried. Across the galaxy, laughter stopped, replaced by unease. Leaders who once mocked now whispered behind closed doors. Some ordered fleets to prepare, others urged caution, but all agreed on one thing. The humans had touched something they should never have found. Back on the ship, the tests continued. Smaller cannons unfolded, each one humming with energy that bent the air around them. Shields activated by themselves, shimmering fields of power encased the warship in glowing light. Engines flared, burning with a speed no human had ever seen. Every system that came online revealed another piece of terror. Yet, with each test, the same pattern repeated. The ship moved first, choosing targets, choosing actions, as if teaching the humans its ways. It was not their tool, it was their partner, or perhaps their master. The crew began to whisper among themselves, afraid to say it aloud. The ship was alive. Jonas confessed late one night. "I feel it in my dreams again, Captain. It shows me battles, victories, and screams. I think it wants to fight again." Others admitted the same. Visions of burning skies, fleets falling apart, and a single ship cutting through them like fire through paper. Their sleep was no longer their own. It belonged to the warship. Still, Alara stood strong. "If it chose us, we will not run," she declared, her eyes hard. "The galaxy thinks we are weak, scavengers, fools. But now we hold the power to change everything." Her crew listened, hearts torn between fear and pride. They had become keepers of a legend. Then came the moment that sealed their fate. During a routine test, the ship suddenly locked its weapons on a distant alien scout. Before Alara could shout to stop, a beam fired, destroying the scout in a single flash. Silence filled the bridge. Horror spread through the crew. They had not given the order. The ship had chosen. And across the galaxy, the alarms began to ring. Because now, the first blood had been drawn, and the galaxy knew the humans had awakened more than just a relic. They had awakened a nightmare. The warning. The destruction of the alien scout could not be hidden. Within hours, the news spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Councils that once laughed at humanity now gathered in fear. The words repeated again and again across channels. The ancient warship lives, and the humans control it. But in truth, the humans did not control it. They only guided it, touched it, woke it. The ship itself made its own choices, and this frightened Alara more than she wanted to admit. Still, she stood tall, for she knew fear alone could not stop what was coming. Alien fleets arrived near the human sector. Dozens of ships lined the edge of space, their weapons glowing, their voices harsh over the comms. "Humans, you play with things you do not understand," one alien commander said. "Leave the wreck and step away, or we will burn your worlds." The crew listened in silence, their hearts beating fast. Jonas whispered, "They are not he, or to talk. They are here to end us." Ilara looked at him, then at her crew, and finally at the glowing console of the warship. She gave a single command: connect to the ship fully. Let it decide. As her hand pressed the control, the ship answered. Lights blazed brighter than ever, engines roared, and weapons extended like claws of a beast. The alien fleets shifted nervously, their commanders shouting orders to prepare. Then, without warning, the warship broadcast a signal. It was not human words, not alien words. It was a pulse, a roar of ancient power that echoed through every ship nearby. On alien bridges, officers screamed as visions filled their minds. They saw burning skies. They saw their fleets torn apart. They saw the shadow of the warship moving like a predator. Some fell to their knees, trembling. Others shouted to retreat, but their commanders forced them to hold position. On the human bridge, the crew felt the same vision. But for them, it was different. The terror was mixed with pride, because the ship showed them fighting beside it, not against it. Ilara clenched her fists, whispering, "It is warning them, not destroying them, yet." The alien commander returned on the comms, his voice shaking with forced anger. "You have no right to that relic. Abandon it or face destruction." Ilara stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "You call it relic, but it calls us chosen. If you fire on us, you will regret it." The alien fleets advanced slowly, weapons charged, their ships surrounding the humans like wolves around prey. The warship remained silent, only its heartbeat echoing through the decks. The crew held their breath, waiting for the first strike, and then it came. A single alien ship fired, a beam of energy streaking toward them. Before Ilara could react, the warship moved on its own. Shields flared like blinding light, absorbing the blast completely, and in the same second the ship answered. A beam erupted from its cannon, not aimed to destroy, but to cut. The alien ship's weapons were sliced clean off, leaving the vessel drifting helpless. Every other fleet ship froze, their commanders stunned into silence. The message was clear. It could kill them all, but it had chosen to spare. "Captain, it is showing mercy," Jonas whispered, his face pale. The crew realized the truth. The warship was not only a machine of death, it also carried judgment. It decided when to kill, when to spare, and when to warn, and now it had given the galaxy its warning. The alien commander's voice returned, but it was no longer mocking. "This is not possible. No ship holds such power. No ship thinks for itself," Ilara answered firmly. "Then you see now why we will not abandon it. This ship is part of us now." Across the fleets, fear spread like poison. Many ships pulled back, their crews unwilling to face the predator in the dark. Others held, but their weapons stayed cold, for the warning had been delivered, and they knew attacking again meant death. Inside, the human crew sat in silence, hearts pounding. They had seen what the warship could do, and they had felt its will. It had chosen them, and it had chosen to spare their enemies. But no one believed it would always show mercy. Jonas said softly, "Next time, it will not just warn them." And deep within the ancient hull, the warship pulsed again, its heartbeat louder, its hunger clearer. The galaxy had been warned, but the storm was only beginning. The challenge, the warning shook the galaxy, but it did not end the threat. Many alien leaders refused to accept the truth. They told themselves it was luck, trickery, or an accident. They could not admit that humans had awakened something far beyond their control. Councils gathered in secret, voices filled with anger and fear. "If we let this continue, humanity will rise above us all," one elder shouted. "That ship is not theirs. It is a danger to the balance of power," another declared. In the end, they all agreed. The relic must be taken or destroyed. Messages spread across the stars, fleets were summoned, warships prepared, and soldiers sworn to a cause they did not fully understand. Millions believed the humans were thieves of a ghost weapon. Few realized that the ship had chosen, and their challenge was not against humanity alone, but against something ancient. On the warship, the human crew felt the tension grow heavier each day. Scouts reported massive fleets gathering, entire armadas heading toward human space. Jonas muttered, "They will not stop, Captain. They are afraid, and fear always brings fire." Ilara nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing console. "Then let them come. We are not alone." That night, the crew experienced visions again, dreams of war, Endless skies burning, alien fleets collapsing into fire. But there was something different this time. They saw not just destruction, but memories. They saw the builders of the warship, a tall, powerful race with eyes like molten fire. They had ruled the stars with cruelty, crushing worlds under their heel. But then their arrogance destroyed them. Their empire turned to ashes, their ships left to drift in silence. The crew woke trembling. Alara whispered to her officers. It was not abandoned. It was sentenced. It was a weapon of monsters. Jonas looked at her, fear in his eyes. And yet it chose us. Why? No one had the answer. Only the heartbeat of the ship pulsing softly through the halls. Days later, the challenge came. A fleet of hundreds of ships entered human space, their weapons blazing, their commanders demanding surrender. Their voices thundered over the comms. Humans, release the relic, or be erased. Alara stood on the bridge, her face calm. Though her hands shook, she replied simply, "We will not surrender. If you want it, come and take it." The warship roared as if pleased with her words. Engines flared, weapons unfolded, shields shimmer. Ed bright. The crew felt the ship's hunger, its eagerness to fight again. Jonas whispered, "It has waited centuries for this moment." The fleets advanced, hundreds of cannons fired. Waves of missiles streaked through the void. The sky lit up with death, and for a moment the crew thought it was the end. But the warship answered with fury. Shields absorbed the blasts like drops of rain. Beams of light erupted from its cannons, slicing through enemy ships like paper. Entire cruisers exploded in seconds, their debris scattering like burning stars. Yet the ship did not stop there. It released drones, small living machines that moved like predators. They swarmed across enemy hulls, tearing into metal, disabling weapons. The crew had never activated them. The ship had unleashed them on its own, Alara whispered. It was not just a ship, it was an army. Panic spread through the alien fleet. Commanders shouted orders, but their voices were drowned in screams. Ships collided as they tried to retreat, only to be hunted down by beams of fire. In less than an hour, half the fleet was gone. But even in the chaos, the warship made choices. Some vessels were spared, their weapons cut, but their lives spared. Others were destroyed completely, reduced to ashes. The crew realized the ship was not fighting blindly. It was judging. It was deciding who lived and who died. When the battle ended, silence filled the stars. Wreckage floated everywhere, burning fragments of ships drifting like shattered moons. The human crew sat in stunned silence, their breaths heavy, their eyes wide with horror and awe. Jonas said softly, "Captain, we did not win this battle, the ship did." Alara looked at the glowing console, her voice quiet. "No, Jonas, it chose us, and now we carry its burden." Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The humans had faced the challenge, and they had not fallen. I stood with the deadliest warship ever built, and the galaxy trembled. The war begins. The destruction of the first Grand Fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Empires that once laughed now gathered in trembling silence. But pride is a chain that binds even the strongest rulers. They could not admit defeat, not to humanity, not to scavengers who once begged for scraps at their tables, so they gathered again. This time not hundreds but thousands of ships, fleets from every empire, banners of every color, engines burning bright. They called it the Coalition of Survival, a force united not by friendship but by fear. Their message thundered across the stars. Humans, you hold a weapon that is not yours. Surrender it, or we will erase you from existence. Alara stood on the warship bridge, her crew gathered around her. She did not answer at first. She only placed her hand on the console, and the ship responded with a low hum, a sound that shook their bones. Jonas whispered, "Captain, if we fight them all, can even this ship survive?" Alara's eyes narrowed, her voice steady. "We will not survive if we run. And this ship does not know the meaning of surrender." The fleets moved closer, a wall of steel and fire stretching across the void. Their numbers blotted out the stars, their weapons locked and ready. The crew felt their breath grow heavy, fear pressing on their hearts. But then the warship roared, engines flared like suns, shields spread wide, and weapons unfolded in layers upon layers. But this time, the ship did something new. Panels shifted, releasing strange orbs of light that floated into space. They spread like seeds, glowing, spinning, forming a network around the ship. Suddenly, the void twisted. Enemy weapons fired, but their blasts bent away, redirected by the orbs. Missiles turned back, striking their own fleets. Beams scattered harmlessly into space. The crew gasped. Jonas cried out, "It is learning, it is changing. It's defense." The coalition fired again. Thousands of cannons at once, the stars lit up with endless fire. But the warship adapted, its shields reshaping, its orbs shifting patterns faster than thought. Every attack became weaker, every strike wasted. Then the ship answered, its cannons fired in rhythms, not random but precise. Each beam targeted a weak point, each blast tore through multiple ships. The coalition tried to regroup, but the warship was already ahead. It was not only powerful, it was intelligent. Panic spread across the enemy fleets. Commanders screamed, soldiers wept. They realized they were not fighting humans, not fighting scavengers. They were fighting the predator of ages past, reborn with human hands on its heart. Inside, the crew felt the visions again, their minds filled with battles fought long before their time. They saw the predator empire rising, conquering, burning, but they also saw its fall, its arrogance, its final silence, and then they saw themselves. Humanity standing where the predators once stood. Jonas trembled. "Captain, what if we become like them? What if the ship makes us monsters?" Alara closed her eyes, her voice heavy. "Then we must remember who we are. Humanity must guide it, not obey it." Outside, the battle raged. Thousands of ships fell, their wreckage turning the void into a graveyard of fire. Yet the warship pressed on, its heartbeat growing louder, its weapons hungrier. For every ship destroyed, it seemed to grow stronger, as if feeding on war. The coalition broke, fleets scattered, commanders begged for retreat. Their once united wall shattered into fragments, and the warship hunted, cutting through the stragglers like a predator through prey. In the end, silence returned. Only wreckage remained, floating in rivers of glowing debris. The warship stood alone, unbeaten, unmatched, unstoppable. The crew sat in silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had seen. Alara finally spoke, her voice quiet but strong. "The war has begun, and now the galaxy will never see us the same again." Jonas whispered, "Captain, they will come again, with more fleets, with more hatred." She nodded slowly. "Yes, and each time this ship will answer. But we must decide if humanity will rise as protectors or fall as predators." And deep within the ancient hull, the warship pulsed, its heartbeat louder than ever, echoing like a drum of war across the stars. The galaxy had thrown its greatest armada, and still it had failed. The war had only just begun. The legend, the galaxy was silent, where once thousands of ships had filled the stars with fire. Now only wreckage floated, burning fragments drifted like dying suns, a graveyard carved by a single warship, and at the center, the humans stood, trembling, victorious, and forever changed. On the bridge, Captain Alara looked at her crew, their faces pale, their eyes wide, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had done. Jonas whispered, "We should not have survived. No fleet in history has fallen so fast. What are we now?" His voice carried both awe and fear. Alara answered softly, "We are witnesses, and we are chosen. But we must never forget we are human first." The warship glowed brighter than ever. Its heartbeat echoed through every corridor, through every console, through every soul aboard. The crew felt it within themselves, a rhythm binding them together. They realized the ship was no longer just an ancient machine. It was alive, and they were part of it. Visions filled their minds once more. But this time they saw no fire, no burning fleets, no screams of enemies. Instead, they saw humanity's future. Ships rising from Earth, guided not by greed but by survival. They saw stars opening, doors once closed, now unlocked. The ship was not showing them war. It was showing them destiny, oh. Outside, the galaxy trembled. Alien leaders argued in fear. Some called for peace, others for revenge, but all agreed on one truth. The humans were no longer scavengers. They were guardians of the deadliest ship alive. Stories spread faster than fleets. Merchants whispered in shadowed ports. Soldiers told tales around their camps. The humans awakened the predator, they said, and now the stars themselves bow to them. Fear became legend. Legend became prophecy. Back on the warship, Alara walked the halls. Her hand traced the glowing walls. Feeling the warmth beneath the cold metal, she whispered, "You could have chosen anyone, but you chose us. Why?" The ship answered only with a steady pulse, a sound that felt like trust. Jonas joined her, his voice quiet. "Captain, maybe it did not choose because of our strength. Maybe it chose us because of our weakness. Because unlike the predators before us, we know fear." Alara nodded. "And knowing fear means we may never fall as they did." Yet even as hope grew, the shadow of war remained. Fleets would come again, hatred would burn again, but humanity no longer stood alone. They had a partner older than empires, stronger than legends, a ship that had been abandoned for centuries and now reborn in their hands. The crew gathered one last time, standing together on the bridge, the stars stretched out before them, endless and silent. Alara raised her hand to the console, the ship answered, and the void trembled. She spoke not just to her crew, but to the galaxy itself. "We are humanity. We are small, but we are unbroken. And with this ship, we will never be ignored again." The warship roared, engines blazing, weapons glowing like suns, but it did not fire. It only moved forward, steady and strong. Its shadow stretched across the stars, and every world that saw it whispered in fear and awe. They called it the beast, the relic, the predator, but humanity gave it a new name. They called it the guardian, not just of Earth, but of their future. And so the legend was born. A warship abandoned for centuries, awakened by the smallest of species, a ship that once hunted now bound by choice, together with humanity. It would reshape the galaxy. The stars would never forget, the enemies would never forget, and history would never forget the day humanity awakened the most dangerous warship ever.